All right, man. Good morning. All right, see if we can make this thing happen, Captain. All right, good morning to you. And check this watch party out. See if we can get going. See if we can get going on all spaces. Grand Rising to you, man. New Black Wall Street Book Club coming back at you. Time for us to do this thing. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Time for us to do that thing. All right. All right, man. Start that thing up. All right. Good to go. All right, man. Good morning. What's going on with you? Facebook isn't working? Okay. I look like I'm doing good here. Hey, that's why we go on a lot of different platforms, man. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff, man. New Black Wall Street Book Club, man. We're coming back at you. Good morning to you, man. Thanks so much for joining. It looks like I do see you over here on Facebook. What's going on with you? Hey, man, we're going to be continuing along our journey into Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. And we're going to be getting back into talking about Miss Hannah Elias. So if you guys remember that lady, I don't know if we're going to be ending our story with her today or not, but we're getting close to the end of the book. So you guys have been hanging along with us, going for the ride. And we have 1, 2, 3, I think we got 4 parts in today's episode. The 4th part is pretty long. We're going to get right to this thing, man. New Black Wall Street Book Club. Y'all know what time it is. Mr. DJ, hit the music. New Black Wall Street Book Club. Evan Jefferson, brother, much love. Educating, elevating, because in knowledge is the power and we'll never give it up. Literature's for the masses. Where to put your money down, now how to watch your assets. Yeah, uplifting others is a passion. My brother Evan, he will turn it into action. New Black Wall Street Book Club. You should come read with us. Yeah, we comprehend and discuss. Yeah. We all just come together. There's no limit for us. Here comes your host, New Black Wall Street. Evan, take it away. New Black Wall Street Book Club. All right, my beautiful people, man. Thanks so much for you're not connected. That's fine. Thanks so much for joining us today here on New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read. I'm your host, ERGJ, your certified financial educator, CEO of ERGJ Enterprises, ERGJ Black Bazaar, and international best-selling author of the book, The Black Millionaires Club. That book there is a study of Black wealth. It's a study of the 12 richest Black people in the world today and how they built their wealth. And I just truly believe that if you want to be wealthy, that's a big if, by the way, but if you want to be wealthy, I recommend that you study wealthy people. Well, you can find that book by simply going to the website, theblackbillionairesclub.com. That's right, theblackbillionairesclub.com, and pick up your copy today. Today's episode is being sponsored by Big Sis Media. Big Sis Media is the company that powers everything that I do, guys, from websites to flyers to all that good stuff. Take care of all of my digital needs. So you can check out Big Sis Media by simply going to the website, bigsismediagroup.com, bigsismediagroup.com. I'm going to try to pull it up here in just a second for you guys here that's on Facebook and Instagram because I do have it available to you. Yeah, that's right, man. bigsismediagroup.com. They're a full-service creative design agency with the tools to help you communicate with your audience through visual and digital media. They're there to watch over your most critical creative needs like a Big Sis would. Check them out at bigsismediagroup.com, bigsismediagroup.com. Now, while you guys are connecting here on the New Black Wall Street Book Club, go and let us know where you're connecting from, what city, what state, and what country. We're broadcasting across the World Wide Web, across YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all at the same time. And so we'd like to know where you're connecting from, what city, what state, as we're broadcasting here from our virtual studio in Decatur, Georgia. That's right, Decatur, where it's greater. And we're just going to continue along, man, having a good time. We're going through the book Black Fortunes, which is the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. The story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. Atlanta is representing here today. Thanks so much for joining. Miss Amanda Hollingsworth, Miss Alexis Holmes from St. Louis is in the house, man. Thanks so much for joining. Tyra McGill, thanks so much for being with us today here on the New Black Wall Street Book Club. Y'all know what time it is. Time for us to get it, man. That's what I'm talking about. We're going to start with our daily motivations for African-American success, written by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro, one of the great Black authors of our time. Daily motivations for African-American success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Let's get it. Today's topic is you're in good hands. You're in good hands. Sound like an Allstate commercial, huh? You're in good hands by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Let's read. So our quote of today comes from Mr. Benjamin E. Mays, who was in education. Mr. Benjamin Mays says this, and I quote, the tragedy of life doesn't lie in not reaching your goal. The tragedy lies in having no goal to reach. I repeat that again, man. Great quote from Mr. Benjamin Mays. The tragedy in life does not lie in not reaching your goal. The tragedy lies in having no goal to reach. And too many beautiful people, as I do a lot of coaching across the country, have no goal to reach, have no definite chief aim that they are going to strive after. So they wake up every morning just saying, hey, we're just going to move along today, but not really saying, man, here's exactly where I'm headed to today. Man, having a goal is so important. Do you got goals like you got milk? You got goals like you got milk. Here's our pastor today. Here's our motivation here. Let's get it. A fortune teller studied the hand of a young man and said, you will be poor and very unhappy until you are 40 years old. The young man responded, well, after that, what will happen? Will I be rich and happy? The fortune teller said, no, you'll still be poor, but you'll be used to it after that. I received numerous letters from people across the country who say they truly wish to be successful, but don't know how. They claim to have tried all sorts of programs and involved rules supposedly leading to success and prosperity. Having met and conversed with scores of achievers, I have found the only necessary requirement of achievement is to adhere to 5 simple steps. 5 simple steps. Number 1, focus on that which you desire most. Which are goals? Everybody put in comments below goals. So the first thing he's saying, hey, requirements of success is to focus on that which you desire most. Have you decided or determined for yourself, for your life, for your family, for your trajectory, what you desire most? Not what everybody else desires of you, but what you desire most for yourself and for your life. Number 2, develop a gratitude attitude. Give thanks. Did you wake up this morning just thankful just for still being here? Ready to rock and roll, knowing that you've been given another opportunity, another day, another moment to still be here on this earth, to still go after whatever it is that you want to go after. Did you give thanks this morning? Or, like some other people do, wake up complaining about what you don't have, about what you have not attained yet, about where you're not at. Well, thank God that you're still here. Number 3, emulate someone you admire. Mentorship. Who is your hero? Who is that individual, that person, whether they're alive or dead, that you emulate your life after? For example, I'm an investor, and I emulate my investing after the greatest investor that I've ever heard of, which is Warren Buffett. He happens to still be alive. I don't know him personally, but I watch everything that he does. I read everything that he writes. He's my mentor, my virtual mentor. Do you have a mentor? Someone that you can emulate, even if they're not in your family, even if you don't know them? Are you studying someone great so that you can be great? See, I wrote that book back there, The Black Billionaires Club. And I continue to tell people something very simple. If you want to be wealthy, study wealthy people. And I've given 12 Black folk who are wealthy that you can study if you wanted to be wealthy. If that's a desire of yours, have you got that book? Did you pick it up yet? Is it something that's in your library? Have you read it yet? Great question to ask this morning, if that's something that you desire to do. Number 4, Recognize that strength grows out of struggle. Recognize that strength grows out of struggle. A key word for there is perseverance. Yes, you may go through something in life, but the thing is that you go through it, that you continue the process until you have gone through it. It's not meant for you to stay in it. You go through it and you come out stronger. You come out wiser. You come out better. You come out smelling like roses because you go through it. Now, how weak would you be, beautiful people, if you never went through anything? If you never had to level up, or your character wasn't tested, or your patience wasn't tested, or whatever it is to help you become a better version of you. There's no way in the world you can say you live in your best life if you've never gone through something to help you become a better person. The relationships that you've had, the disappointments that you've gone through. Don't you know that it's all working together for your good? And that good is you being a better version of you, the best version of you that you can be. And number 5, he says this: dedicate yourself to lifelong learning. And that word is study. So it says, hey, man, he found the only necessary requirement to achievement is to adhere to the 5 simple steps. Number 1, goals. Set them. Number 2, thanks. Give it. Number 3, mentorship. Follow someone. Number 4, perseverance. Hold on till it's over. This too shall pass. And number 5, what I talk about so much, study. Who are you studying? Great question this morning. Here lies your answer. Only you know whether you adhere to these rules. It is you and you alone who can predict with startling accuracy whether you will reach your goals. The person who makes up his or her mind to reach some grand ideal must follow many steps. None are more important than these tried and true keys. Now listen to what he just said. He said you can predict with startling accuracy whether you will reach your goals. Right now, billionaires, I want you to think about whatever goal that you set. Maybe you set something up for 2019. Maybe you're putting something out for 2020. Well, you can look at your life. You can look at how you approach today. You can look at whether you run your day or whether your day runs you. You can tell whether you are on track to reach your goals if you have set a goal. You can tell whether you are going to reach your goals if you have actually set your goal. Here's my question to you. Are you on track? Are you on pace? Are you making progress? Are you getting there slowly but surely? Do you even know where there is that you want to reach? Do you even know where there is that you want to reach? What's going on, AV and Waikito with Facebook? Thanks so much for joining. Hey, they said something going on with Facebook, so I don't know. But hey, we're still here, man. Now, here's our affirmation of the day. Here's what we want to allow to take root into our subconscious, our heart. And then we can grow and develop this thing by repeating it over and over and over again until it brings forth a harvest into our life. Repeat after me. Today, I will set aside time to apply these 5 keys in every area of my life. Let's do it again. Repeat after me. Our affirmation of the day for daily motivations for African American success. Let's get it. Repeat after me. Today, I will set aside time to apply these 5 keys in every area of my life. Now, what are those 5 keys again? Goals, thanks, mentorship, perseverance, and study. Let's do it again one more time for the people in the back, the people in the way back, our affirmation of the day. This time I want to make sure that they know that we mean business. Power, life, and death is in the tongue, so we use our tongue to speak life into our life. We know whether we really want to accomplish or do or have the things that we say we want to have. Affirmation of the day, repeat after me. Today, I will set aside time to apply these 5 keys in every area of my life. Daily Motivations for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Daily Motivations for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Well, my beautiful people, man, again, thanks so much for joining. I hope you hit that like button, that share button, all the good stuff. I do want to let you guys know that we do have a goal that we want to reach. That is 1,000 YouTube subscribers by the end of this year. So if you have not already, go to YouTube and locate ERGJ Enterprises. Hit the subscribe button. That's free for you to do. What it allows us to do, guys, it allows us to get YouTube to pay for this great content so that you don't have to. And so we're just asking for your little assistance to help us reach our goal. We're currently about 700 subscribers. So if you want to go ahead and make sure you add it to that list, do something for free to help a brother out, I appreciate it. Now, that was our appetizer, our affirmation appetizer today. And we're going to get right into the meat of what we're discussing today, which is Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. Now, I believe that this book is so on point for such a time as this, because I realize that many African Americans are still enslaved in one way or another. It's leveled up from physical enslavement because we're no longer physically enslaved. Well, not everywhere. But now we're talking about financial slavery where we're servant to the lender. We're talking emotional slavery where we're servant to our own thoughts or our own emotions. We're talking about mental slavery. Mental health is a big thing where we're slaved to our own thoughts. And so we can still break free. Everybody put it down, so break free and become prosperous in these areas where we may have been bound. So this book, not only is it literal, not only is it based upon true stories, but it also has some meaning relative to where we could be if we find ourselves stuck. If we find ourselves bound, if we find ourselves not able to move forward, so we're still connected to something in the past. So it's time for you and I to break free. And my God, I've been really enjoying what we've been reading as we've been going through Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. What's going on, Mr. Logan Nesbitt? Thanks so much for joining. Absolutely. Now, we're into chapter 17, which is the trials of Hannah Elias. Now, Hannah Elias, in case you guys don't remember, you want to make sure you want to pick up on our previous episodes, which you can find on our podcast across all different platforms, New Black Wall Street New Black Wall Street Book Club podcast. Hannah Elias was let's kind of catch you up on who this woman is. She was the pride and joy of the family. Then she ended up going to jail for stealing. She came out of jail, and then the family didn't want her. Her father didn't want her to come back into the house. She left, or she had to find a way to do what to live or to survive. She got into escorting or prostitution. She found some sugar daddies. She had a childhood sweetheart that loved her, that wanted to save her from the life of prostitution. He came into her life, took her out of the bunny ranch, and not married her, but ended up letting her live with him. Got her pregnant. Then he took off. So she was pregnant. She ended up having to give up her child, or ended up giving up her child for adoption. Then she went after him, and they got into some domestic violence. And then she went back to jail. Then she got out of jail. She went back to her sugar daddy. She started building a life for herself, ended up getting rich, doing some board and housing stuff and all this stuff. And then she found herself into a wealthy part of town where she didn't feel like she was accepted. So she was very wealthy, and she got wealthy through sugar daddies who then taught her how to manage money. But she didn't feel accepted in the area where she lived, so she was a recluse. She ended up staying in a house and just then modifying herself, trying to be somebody she wasn't. This is a woman who she was wealthy, but it doesn't seem like she loved her life. And so now we're picking up where we last left off with Hannah Elias, chapter 17. Let's get into it. The trials of Hannah Elias. The trials of Hannah Elias. Let's read. Now, Hannah Elias passed most of her time reading about murders in dime novels and the newspapers. In September of 1901, everybody put in comments, so 1901, this is the turn of the century. In September of 1901, the murder of President William McKinley by an anarchist in Buffalo, New York, filled the pages of the local dailies. 2 months later, a different scandal arose after his vice president, Theodore Roosevelt, was sworn into office and invited Booker T. Washington to the White House. In headlines of the New York papers, the presence of a black man at the White House was called outrageous. Articles about the meeting quoted South Carolina Senator Benjamin Tillman, who thundered the action of President Roosevelt in entertaining that nigger will necessitate our killing 1,000 niggers in the South before they will learn their place again. The same year, Hannah became pregnant, and John Platt, who was presumed to be the father. The following spring, she delivered a baby girl at her home and named her Gwendolyn Elias. On the baby's birth certificate, she listed the child's race as white. By recording Gwendolyn as white, Elias made manifest her hope that her daughter could achieve what Elias was unable to do herself: pass for white. Elias's life, even as a woman of means, was bounded by race. In her view, the only way to escape the limitations that came from being rich and black was to escape being black altogether. Several weeks after her birth, the baby became sick and died. Elias consumed herself in making funeral plans, arranging for her elaborate marble mausoleum to be constructed at her daughter's gravesite. The work totaled $15,000, or about $422,000 in today's terms, and Platt paid the bill. He, however, did not attend the funeral. Having no other friends, Elias paid her staff to attend her daughter's burial. On the death certificate, Elias listed the child's race as black. As she was dead, there was no point continuing to pretend she was white. Now, I don't know if y'all can imagine this. Being a woman of means, a woman who is wealthy, and it's like in the book it says, what does it profit the soul to gain the whole world and to lose her own soul? And so you falsify the birth certificate to say that this child is white, and we don't know, did she even look white? But all in an effort to help your daughter escape the life that you have been trying to escape forever, which is being black. I'm saying, can you imagine? Amanda said, man, whoo, child, she did a lot. She said, I'm tired of her. Oh, but God, in 1901. So this is in 1901 that, this wealthy woman who had obviously been through a lot, experienced a lot, has some really interesting, really interesting relationships with men and possibly women and black people, white people as well. She simply did not love the skin that she was in, and she felt it was necessary to escape it in order to live, in order to break free. You know what I'm saying? And let's talk in reality, guys. Like, this is nothing new, right? I think that unfortunately we're in 2019 going into 2020 as this is being read, and we still have black people who are trying to escape being black. If we be honest, like we have all of this, let's just be honest. We got whitening, people trying to whiten their skin still in 2019. We have the whole, thing that women are doing with the hair and all this stuff. Now, it seems like some white women are trying to be black and some black women are trying to be white. It's very interesting. But trying to escape the skin that you're in, trying to modify what God has made at the end of the day. And I find it's very interesting that we can say we love God and we love who God has made us, but we don't love how God has made us look. Wow. We love God, we love what God has made, but we don't necessarily like how God has made us look. I find that such a contradiction. It makes no sense to me, and I'm not the one to judge, but my goodness, what's it like to be in a place where you hate the skin that you're in? You hate your own features. You hate to look into the mirror. You're trying to escape your own physical appearance to try and be something and or someone that God has never intended you to be. That was part one. Black Fortunes. The story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. Chapter 17. The Trials of Hannah Elias, Part 2. On Friday, November 15th of 1903, Cornelius Williams stood looking into the mirror of a public restroom in Manhattan, combed his hair, slicked it with pomade, trimmed his mustache with a straight razor, adjusted his gray 3-piece suit, and placed a matching bowler hat atop his head. He then packed the razor, a gold-plated watch, and a revolver into his pockets. His mind was made up. Today was the day he was going to find Hannah Elias and take revenge upon her. Elias had evicted him from her boarding house 8 years before. And since then, according to those who knew, Williams had gone mad. He still carried a grudge against her. And after being evicted from another house a month prior, he had resolved to track her down. When he found her, he was determined to cut her tongue out. However, he hadn't been able to locate Elias. No one at the church or the black social or eating establishment had seen her in years. Williams decided to extract her whereabouts from Platt, whom he knew by his pseudonym, Mr. Green, and with whom he had once had a run-in at Elias's boarding house. So Cornelius was an ex-boarder or tenant of Elias, and he got kicked out when he had a run-in with her sugar daddy, who was Mr. Robert Platt. Several days earlier, Williams had found a man named Andrew Green in the city directory and had gone to the address of the office listed for him. Leering through a window at Green's office building, Williams saw an elderly white man with a beard and a white hair and was sure he had his man. A man he saw, though he was not Platt, it was the New York City planner, Andrew H. Green. On the morning of November 13th, Williams went to the address listed as Green's residence on Park Avenue and waited for him to show up. Green lived in a townhouse with a covered staircase leading up to a front door of carved stone. When he arrived home at around noon, he found Williams waiting on him on the stairs. As soon as he walked up, Williams began demanding to know Elias's whereabouts. Who are you anyway? I don't know you. Get away from me, Green shouted at Williams. Williams responded by taking his revolver from his hip pocket and shooting him 3 times, once in the head, once in the abdomen, once more in the groin. Williams took off after shooting, but ran back to the stoop in a panic when neighbors spotted him and shouted for him to stop. Standing over Green's lifeless body, Williams gesticulated and yelled obscenities. "You forced me to do this," he was overheard yelling. After a few minutes, a police carriage pulled up and officers jumped out. Williams told the officers calmly, "I'm a man who did the shooting," and pointed to the revolver in his hip pocket. The officer took the gun from him and placed him under arrest. "Officer, this is the man I wanted to shoot, and I done it. I don't want to shoot anybody else. You do not be afraid," he said as the officer wrestled him onto the police wagon. They took Williams to the 34th Street Police Station for questioning. There he was interrogated by Captain Day. He told Day that he had killed Green because he was the lover of a woman who had slandered him. They asked if Williams had ever been in a mental institution. I've been called foolish sometimes, but never insane. I'm not insane, Williams replied, fidgeting with his mustache as his eyes darted up and down. He then posed for a mugshot in his chair. He puffed out his chest and sat up straight as the flashbulb went off. That night, Williams slept soundly in the cell. In the morning, he sent out for a hearty breakfast. As he ate, police formed a committee to determine his sanity and assigned detectives to find and question Hannah Elias. On Saturday, November 14th, 1903, the front pages of newspapers across the country carried banner headlines with the news of a murder of New York City's planner by a crazed Negro seeking revenge against Green's black mistress. Throughout New York, flags were lowered to half-mast for the man who had unified the 5 boroughs into one city and overseen the construction of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the American Museum of Natural History, the Bronx Zoo, New York Public Library, and Central Park. Even as they mourned, though, New Yorkers were shocked that Green had been shot over a black woman. On the steps of Green's house, still stained with blood, his nephew addressed a group of reporters attempting to quell the rumors of interracial liaison. The story that this Negro tells is a perfect humbug and a fiction from A to Z, he told the scrum of reporters. Inspector George W. McCluskey was tasked with finding the woman Williams had spoken of. He discovered Hannah Elias residing in a mansion at 236 Central Park West. He went to her house that morning and was led in by her staff, who led him to Elias sprawled on a sofa in her best Cleopatra pose. She told McCluskey that Williams' statement was a tissue of lies. She then admitted that Williams had lived in her lodging house in 1895, but swore she had never heard from him since he had left. She denied knowing or meeting Mr. Green, but told McCluskey that Green resembled a man that she was having an affair with, John R. Platt. That same evening, McCluskey visited Platt at his house to confirm Elias' story. Platt's son-in-law, W.J. Cassard, was at home with Platt and insisted on being present for his questioning. Platt told McCluskey that Elias' story was true, but asked that his affair with her be kept confidential. McCluskey agreed. However, Platt's secret affair had now been revealed to his family. Williams was deemed insane a week after the murder and committed to an asylum. McCluskey, true to his word, kept Platt's affair from reaching the papers. Platt's relatives were another matter. Cassard shared the secret with the rest of the Platt's family, who became outraged when they found out how much of his fortune, which they stood to inherit, had been lavished on his black mistress. So now we're getting to Hannah Elias, who, as we know, was having an affair, or Mr. Robert Platt, who was a married black man at that time, was having an affair with Hannah Elias. And he was basically investing the family fortune into this woman and helping her to get rich. And obviously, she was helping him with some stuff as well. And now the secret is out to the family with Mr. Robert Platt. How long has this been going on? Probably 10 to 20 years of an affair that's going on back in the 1900s. And Hannah Elias is we're not going to say the biggest, but she's the beneficiary of wealth for being a hoe. Let's just keep it real. She's the beneficiary of wealth for being a hoe. Robert Platt has showed her how to manage money, how to invest money, all in the hopes of keeping her in his life that he at one time said he wanted to marry, but this was after his wife had passed away. And so Mr. Green, Mr. McCluskey, Mr. Williams is the one that caused all this because he shot the wrong man. I mean, this is some drama here. I mean, this is really some drama here. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the comments. Amanda said, yes, we surely do try to escape our blackness. Some days I wear croquet fake hair, and other days I rock my natural hair. Yes. Oh, wow. Keeping it real, trying to escape our blackness. See what you guys talk about here in the comments. What's going on, Mr. Peter Grant? Grand Rising. How can you love God if you don't love yourself first? Great question, Mr. AV Knows over on Facebook. Great question to ask. How can you love God if you don't love yourself first? Now it's part 2, guys, of Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. And I think we have one more part, which is part 3, and this is a long part, so we'll get this in. Chapter 17, The Trials of Hannah Elias, part 3. Let's read. All right. Whew, this is something else. Whew, it's the true stories too, but it's something else nonetheless. All right, on Tuesday, May 30th of 1904. So we're still talking 120 years ago, 115 years ago, 1904. All right. 1904, John R. Platt, under pressure from his family, filed a lawsuit against Hannah Bessie Elias in the amount of $685,000 or $18.5 million in today's terms in New York Superior Court. In a suit in which his lawyers from the firm of Warren and O'Brien published in the local papers, he alleged Elias had extorted money from him over the previous 8 years. The lawsuit also requested that all her accounts, which included holding in 26 savings institutions, 34 trust companies, and 69 banks, be frozen. It also requested that she be prevented from selling any of the 12 properties she owned, including her boarding house in Midtown, her Central Park West mansion, or her rental properties in Upper Manhattan. Now, let's go back and realize what this woman owned, which she was able to acquire through her secret affair from a rich black man, a sugar daddy. She had holdings in 26 savings institutions. This was back in 1905. She had holdings in 34 trust companies. This was back in 1905. She had holdings in 69 banks. This was back in 1905. She owned 12 properties back in 1905. She had a boarding house, in other words, like an apartment that she owned back in 1905. Had a mansion in Central Park West back in 1905. And she also had rental properties that she managed in Upper Manhattan back in 1905. So we're talking about a millionaire, a female millionaire, early 1900s that we never heard about, that really hasn't been written about much, I guess. And I'm just asking a question. How many guys have actually heard of Hannah Elias before us going through this book, Black Fortunes? I have never heard of it, right? That was never a Black history moment that we discussed. Now, we always got talked about or told about Madam C.J. Walker, but this was before Madam C.J. Walker. A millionaire. I mean, you hear all of that wealth that she owned? 20-year favorite, Power of the Yaya. I know that's right. Power of the Yaya. It had taken her months convincing, right? It took her months of convincing by Platt's younger brother, Isaac S. Platt, and W.J. Cassard to get Platt to sign off on the lawsuit. They convinced me that the woman ruined not only my reputation in the end, but in the meantime to squeeze all the money possible out of me, he explained. The one concession he demanded from his relatives was that Elias was not be arrested. When Elias heard the news, she panicked. She flew into a fit and began barking orders at her servants to run to the banks where she had holdings and drain her accounts. When they returned later in the day, they told her that they had not been able to get all the money. Collectively, they had come up with $156,000 or $4.2 million in cash. Elias put the money into a sack, gave it to her doorman, Patrick W. This doesn't sound good at all. Patrick W. Dugan, and instructed him to put it into a safe at his house. After her cash had been hidden, she collapsed and was carried to bed by her servants. That evening, the crowds of angry protesters and onlookers began to gather outside her home. Their jeers coming through the walls and windows. One of Elias's servants fetched a chain to reinforce the doors for fear the crowd might climb the gates and kick them in. As Elias long feared, The public revelation of a black woman being in possession of such wealth caused outrage. Though some blacks were known to own businesses or work in trade jobs, it was unfathomable that a black woman was living next to millionaires and was perhaps a millionaire herself. Moreover, she is not even a full generation out of slavery. She had been born in the free territory of Philadelphia in August of 1865, 4 months before the ratification of the 13th Amendment. The day after the suit was announced, Platt's lawyers obtained a civil order for Elias's arrest. They told the judge at the Superior Court that they feared she might flee to Japan with her butler, Cato. The judge granted the order, which was given to a New York City deputy or sheriff along with the mandate for her arrest. When the deputy arrived at her house, he had to push past the crowd to climb the stairs of her home and ring the doorbell. Cato greeted him. The butler apologetically told the deputy that he had to deny him entrance to the house because Elias was ill. Deputy Sheriff began shouting at Cato, at which point Washington's Bronze, an attorney hired by Elias, arrived at the house and interceded. There is no reason on earth for trying to arrest my client, he told the deputy sheriff, getting between him and Cato. She hasn't any idea of trying to get away, and even if she had, she is too ill to do so. What's going on, Vashawn? How you doing, brother? After arguing back and forth with Bronze, the deputy conceded that the civil order for an arrest did not allow him forcible entry into the home. Elias could be arrested only on a criminal complaint. For a week after the lawsuit was filed, Elias stayed in her home. Platt's attorney remained frustrated they were unable to serve her with the lawsuit or the order for civil arrest. The crowd outside her home was now in the hundreds, the number having grown so large that it blocked the sidewalk and street, bringing carriage traffic to a halt. As the gathering outside her home grew larger, the prospect of violence loomed. A few days earlier, Cato and 2 black errand boys she employed had been assaulted when trying to leave her house. They'd been able to flee back into the home with only a few bruises before things got too out of hand. Afterward, a mounted police detail had been assigned to her block to keep the crowd under control and the streets clear. However, as reinforcements arrived, the crowd seemed to increase by the hour, with one detective putting the number of people gathered at 10,000. The Elias scandal had been in the papers for days, with writing that Negress extorted nearly 1 million, and Platt says Elias obtained nearly 700,000 through threats. The ordeal seemed to spark racial outrage and inflame the economic tensions already simmering in the city. Protesting at Elias's house became so popular in the city that men and women were known to pack lunches and bring their children to stand outside her house to hurl profanity and trash at her windows. At 8 o'clock on June 7th, 2 New York assistant district attorneys and a judge went to see Platt in his home, hoping to get him to sign a criminal complaint so that they could arrest Elias. Platt held out until 10 o'clock, finally getting into the persuasions of the judge, the attorneys, and his family. As they had received Platt's signature, the judge issued a warrant for Elias's arrest on the spot. At 11 at that night, detectives attempted to kick down her front door. The door resisted their boots, and one of the detectives sent a deputy to try and find an axe. Before he could return, someone from the crowd offered a heavy metal pipe, which a detective then used to batter the door until it gave in. The detectives rushed into the house to find it in complete darkness. Cato emerged from the shadows and politely greeted the detectives. "I will take you to her," he said, pointing towards a winding stairwell. Elias was sitting up in bed, still in her nightclothes. "We would have to come to the door, but in being such a late hour, we weren't sure what to do," she explained. She told the officers she was prepared to come with them, but needed a few minutes to dress. As she exited the house with the officers, Elias wore a dark dress, a wig of straight black hair pinned into a bun, and a black veil attached to her hat. As she walked to the police carriage, the crowd became raucous, hurling bottles and rocks in her direction. She pressed her face into the arm of one of the detectives to shield herself from the debris. When she arrived at the Tombs, as the city prison was commonly known, she could hear screaming outside the carriage and objects breaking against its roof. Flanked by a group of officers, she ducked through another mob into the Tombs, where she was processed and booked just after 2 a.m. on June 8th of 1904. From her cell, her screams and sobs could be heard echoing throughout the station. Now, this part of the story, it just brings us back to, again, I think this is the third time, if not the fourth, that Hannah Elias actually is in jail. And I would say all 3 times, no, 2 of those times were really at the hands of the men in her life. So the first time was on her. Maybe she was caught stealing and went to jail when she was a young girl. But then she was outcast by her father and, became a hoe and a prostitute. I'm sorry, let's say prostitute. Became a prostitute, escort. And then when her childhood sweetheart came for her and tried to give her a different life, and he abandoned her when she got pregnant, she went and had the domestic violence, went to jail again. And now, with her sugar daddy for over 20 years, who helped her to get rich and who seemed to be weak, giving in to his family, giving in to the judges, giving in to the officers. It seems like he's kind of lying, but he's still trying to protect himself at the same time, or maybe protect the family name. I don't know. But now she's back in jail because of him. So, again, one of the things that we're going to be doing, one of the things I'm going to do, we got a show called He Say, She Say Show. We're actually going to be going through this story because it starts with the story of her being a Black Cleopatra and going through this dynamic of this, I guess, this beautiful woman. I don't know what she must have been beautiful, but this woman who all throughout her life seemed to have a bad relationship with men. And it has caused her, one, it's helped her to get rich, but it's caused her to find herself in jail multiple times. And also, at one point in time, she had some anger issues. So, yeah, let's keep going. 2 days later, Hannah Elias was to be arraigned on charges of extortion in the New York criminal court building. The night before, let me see if you guys talking in the comments. I don't see y'all comment. Okay, hold on. Oh, AV, so she wasn't the only one either. Imagine what those helping her. I know that's right. Right? That night before, she had stayed up all evening in her cell, daring at a threatening letter she had received from the Duquesne Club in Pittsburgh, a social club composed of white male industrialists. She spent hours studying the words scrawled on the paper. It was clear that the scandal of a wealthy Black woman alleged to be an extortionist had drawn attention. Elias lived in a mansion off of Central Park outfitted with butlers, maids, and personal chefs from Japan, China, France, and Africa. She owned 3 properties in New York City in addition to her main home. She had a chauffeur and a carriage, diamonds, pearls, and furs. She had over $100,000 or $2.7 million in cash and rented a summer home in Long Beach, New Jersey. A rich Black woman confounded ideas about Blacks and poverty, while the accusation of blackmail against Platt gave support to stereotypes about Blacks and criminality. Her story was being covered by newspapers across the country as readers followed along suit waiting to see what the conclusion would be. At her arraignment, the crowd in the courtroom grew so large that the doors would barely be shut. Police barricaded the entrances to the courthouse to prevent the thousands gathered outside from forcing their way in. Elias sat at the defense table with her lawyer, Washington Bronze, waiting for the proceedings to start. Across the courtroom was the prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney William Rand, who had, my bad, guys. Who had looking for a man who was assured the outcome would be in his favor. The first witness Rand called that day was John R. Platt. As Platt climbed into the witness stand, Elias leveled her gaze at him. When Platt shifted in his seat, Elias adjusted her position to fix her stare upon him again. How old are you? The prosecutor began. I'm 83 years old. I was born in 1820, Platt replied. What is your occupation? I have no occupation. I was a plate glass manufacturer but retired years ago, Platt answered. Do you know the defendant, Hannah Elias? And if so, how long have you known her? I know her, but I don't know just when I met her. It was a long time ago when the volunteer firemen came here from San Francisco. You supported her during the last 10 years, District Attorney Rand posed, at which point Elias looked eyes with Platt? I don't know, Platt said, searching for the right answer. I've given her large sums of money. Your relations with her have been more than a friend, have they not? Yes. Platt seemed bothered by the question. Did you give her large sums of money for the last 10 years, running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars? I don't know, Platt said. His face brought a look of displeasure to Rand's face. Do you remember bringing action in the Supreme Court to recover $685,000? I don't know, Platt muttered. Do you remember any of the suit at all, Rand asked. I don't know, Platt repeated. Do you remember signing a warrant charging her with blackmail? I think I did. Do you know what day of the week it is, Rand said, as growing impatient. I think so. Do you know what day of the month it is? I don't remember, Platt replied, his answer seeming to throw the prosecutor into a fit of anger. Do you remember swearing to certain facts in this case the other night in your home? Rand pounded the table in front of him. Go easy on the witness, the judge interjected. Rand posed several dozen more questions, to which Platt replied, I don't know, or I don't remember, until the prosecutor finally gave up. Elias's attorney declined to cross-examine Platt. A former attorney of Elias's was called, testifying that he had known of Platt and Elias's affair, but had no knowledge of where she got her money. Both of his witnesses having fallen flat, Rand told the judge he had no other evidence to present. Magistrate Ahmed spoke up. I wish to place myself right. The district attorney has not made out the case as he did at the conference at Mr. Platt's house, he said, seemingly unapologetic. After scolding the district attorney for his presentation of the case, he looked at Rand and uttered what sounded like a question but seemed to be in order. Do I understand the district attorney requested dismissal of the charge against the woman? You can put it that the district attorney's office recommends that such a course be pursued, Rand conceded. After the case was dismissed and the court adjourned, Platt exited the courtroom first, leaving through the front door, leaning on his cane. Jeers of nigger lover and a cascade of bottles greeted him. Police escorted Elias and her lawyer to a back exit where a carriage awaited. They returned to her mansion, taking back streets to avoid the crowds. Cato was waiting when they pulled up. Elias and Bronze ran up the stairs and shared an embrace with him. Later that evening, Elias invited a rare guest into her home, a reporter from a New York Times. Seated in the parlor of her home, she gave her first public statement. I don't blame the poor old man at all, she told the reporter. I know he was forced to bring the suit against me. He had no choice in the matter of sending out the warrant for my arrest. He never wanted to make trouble for me himself. I'm sure of it. I've known all along I would be vindicated as soon as I got a hearing. I never did anything wrong taking the money which he gave me. It's all nonsense to talk of me having blackmailed him, as he plainly showed himself this afternoon when he refused to say that I extorted money from him by threats. Elias, who had dealt with the angry crowds outside her home for weeks, seemed to reach for reconciliation in her final words. I've all my life made white people my friends, and never had much to do with my own race. Crowds outside her home shrank each day after the trial until one day, after a few weeks, they were gone all together. Looking out her windows, Elias could see an empty strip of pavement in front of her home and again see the green of the park. She took it as an auspicious sign and hoped that the worst of her misfortunes were over. She hoped that the worst of her misfortunes were over. So Hannah Elias, this is just an amazing story. So many different angles that we could discuss and get and learn from. But at the end of the day, Mr. Platt, I let's just say he did have some love for Elias. He did not want any harm to come upon his mistress. And he decided that, or maybe he was old and just, I don't know. But at the end of the day, let's just say the veil was off. The affair was publicly known. There was light shed onto the subject. But he didn't take her down. He still had love for the woman. He may have loved her. I'm pretty sure the affair is probably over at this point. He's an 83-year-old man. I'm not quite sure how old she is at this point. But, whoo, oh, Lord. I guess it's kind of stuff that you go through when you're doing the stuff behind closed doors. I guess this is the kind of stuff that you go through. I'm not sure. But story Hannah Elias, a woman who got a lot of her wealth through her sugar daddy, through an affair. This is the trials that she went through as she got older, and it's finally known that she's a wealthy Black woman living amongst white millionaires back in 1904. This is the New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read. You put in a book, we absolutely will find it. We've been going through, you put in a book like Daily Motivations for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. If you put in a book like Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires, we will find it. In the comments below, I'd like for you to share something that you learned today. I mean, man, what a story. I mean, we don't do this just to do this. We do this to make a difference. And hopefully as we read and as we learn from our ancestors, our predecessors, and we learn about people that were enslaved that became millionaires, hopefully it inspires you to do the best that you can do while you're here on this earth and in this society. Payne said, I think he was playing a game. He was trying not to get himself killed and not hurt her also. Absolutely, man. Probably as well. I mean, we back in the 1900s, so there's a lot going on at that time that I don't really quite know or understand because I wasn't living back in that time. So it was a whole different dynamic back in the early 1900s. But I still think that we can learn a lot from this part of the story that we're going through as we go through this book. Well, beautiful people, I want to say thanks so much for joining us here today on New Black Wall Street Book Club. I want you guys to remember this, that it takes a village, and it absolutely does start with us. Let's build as we climb together. We all we got, beautiful people. Matter of fact, we all we need. And thank God that's more than enough. Until next episode, you know what time it is. Mr. DJ, hit the music.
New Black. It's the New Black Wall Street Book Club. New Black Wall Street. With your host, Evan Jefferson. It's time for us to go. Yeah. Now, you ain't got to leave the computer, but we encourage you to get out there and learn and apply all the things you learn at the New Black Wall Street Book Club. Yeah. The New Black Wall Street. The New Black Wall Street Book Club.